COP27 is over, and the big question is what now or what next? For the first time in 30 years, we have been able to secure the loss and damage funding facility, but where is the money going to come from? And those are some of the questions that a majority of the people or majority of the activists are really asking themselves. And I believe we have the answers, we've got the answers, and we know our world leaders are going to make sure that we get the finances for us to be able to facilitate loss and damage as well as adaptation. And reflecting on COP27, and one of my heroes that I celebrate until now is the European Union Vice President, Frans Timmermans. And he talked about COP27 being a COP of implementation and not a revolutionary one. And he also talked about the urgency of financing adaptation and getting the loss and damage finance being the two main deliverables that he really wanted people to look into and address and be able to for us to get the finances for that. And talking about Frans Timmermans and the European Union is that the European Union is really stepping up the game to support Africa face climate change. And together with Germany, Denmark, Netherlands, and France, the European Union has been able to launch the Team Europe initiative of over 1 billion euros to support adaptation in Africa, which is a good thing for us as Africans, including 60 million euros for loss and damage. That shows us how our partners are committed, how the EU is committed towards addressing the loss and damage and adaptation in Africa. And it has also pledged to be able to support the collection of analysis of climate risk data and also strengthen early warning systems for Africa, and also help pull more financial resources for the continent of Africa. And another thing is also to strengthen the climate finance mechanisms to be able to protect vulnerable communities against climate hazards. That shows us how we as Africans or we as Tanzanians are supposed to also step up and show the European Union and other financing resources that we are ready to work with them and be able to support them towards achieving what we want to achieve, especially when it comes to climate crisis and climate finance. And the EU and its member states are really the largest providers of the public climate finance, having more doubled its contribution since the year 2013. And last year alone, the EU provided over 23 billion to help partner countries fight climate change. That shows us how the European Union is really working hard to make sure that Africa is able to fight climate change. Africa is able to adapt. Africa is able to get the loss and damage finance to be able to address the impacts of climate change. And talking about the European Union, and somebody will be asking me like, why the European Union? It is because we are having the United Nations, we are having China, and all those are all the big fish in the society or in the planet. But what role are they really playing? And it's high time that we recognize the role that these partners are really playing towards the development of the country or towards the development of the continent, especially when we talk about climate change and the climate crisis. Looking at what is coming up next, called the COP15, which is the COP of biodiversity, is that nobody is really talking about it. Nobody is addressing COP15, and it is a very, very important aspect of the planet. The European Union once again has stepped out for COP15 and is ready and has pledged to negotiate the measurable goals that targets towards the protection of at least 30% of land and oceans by 2030, called the 30 by 30 agenda. And it has also pledged to restore 3 billion hectares of land and oceans, and also halt species extinction caused by humans or human activities, and as well as addressing the unsustainable agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. And that is something that is very, very important for the planet and for biodiversity. Another thing is to tackle the drivers of biodiversity laws such as pesticides, invasive alien species and plastics. That is a very difficult agenda that most people do not want to talk about or do not want to address, but it's really impacting biodiversity. And the EU has also pledged to negotiate on the strengthening the links between biodiversity and climate action, for example, with nature-based solutions, because COP27 addresses climate change, and people tend to forget that there is a very big connection between biodiversity and climate change. They are all intertwined and they can never be separated. So it is high time, as environmental activists, as environmental scientists, as environmental pioneers, to step out and say that we need to address this crisis. We need to ask everybody to step out and address the impacts of climate change, given the fact that it is really happening. And Frans Timmermans talks about Pakistan. He talks about the droughts that are happening in Africa. He talks about the food insecurities that are going on in Africa, and he says that this needs to be addressed with the urgency that it deserves, and we need to have the loss and damage financing facility now for us to be able to get out of this kind of bondage that has been bonding us for the past years. And we are so excited that the loss and damage funding facility is going to work, and hopefully asking other partners to also step in and take an example of the European Union.